What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Another Wednesday live stream coming at you here on the 16th of April, year of our Lord 2025, as you can see there at the bottom, as well as the ticker. Please pay attention to that, people, because that's just as important, because not only am I putting forth a live stream every Wednesday now, going back to early February, or right around the Super Bowl, come to think of it. So it's been over 2 months. But of course, tomorrow, the latest podcast, Apple, Spotify, JAYREELZ.com, of course, here on YouTube. And then on top of all that, of course, another podcast on Monday. So not only do you get a double dose of podcasting twice a week, but you'll also get here the live stream, which I appreciate you guys and gals hopping on board, sharing your comments, your thoughts in the chat room, which is very important. So please, for those who are going to tune in, do so, leave a comment. We'll banter back and forth about what's happening in the world of sports and beyond. Doesn't matter. This is where everybody who comes to this space will just want to be free, open up, and this is the whole point about it. We could debate, we could go back and forth, bandy about the topics that I'm going to put forth here over the course of the next hour plus, depending on how it goes. I'm sure it's going to be fast and furious nevertheless. But with that being said, I got some housekeeping. Obviously, for those who are watching a replay, I have to leave this reminder, leave a comment, because if you aren't here live and you catch this later on today, tomorrow, whenever it may be, and if you didn't like what I said, if you agreed with what I said, if you're like, oh, wait, I didn't even think about that, and you want to share your thoughts, yes, you can still do that. I'll follow up. We could go back and forth even when this is all said and done. So just keep that in mind as well. And then on top of all that, a big announcement at the back end of this live stream that you won't want to miss. And I mean that. And just to give you maybe even a little bit of a hint, your boy's going to be on location again. Remember, I put out that vlog last week when I went to Citi Field opening day where I got the temperature of the Met fan? Well, I'm going to do another one of those videos, but you'll have to find out at the very end where and when I will have that setting or that location that I'll be at. So you definitely don't want to miss that as well. So now let's move forward. The NBA season, as we all know, is concluded. Last night, you had the play-in tournament begin, and with 2 games tonight, which to me are snooze fests. I get it. They're the 9-10 seeds. They're not expected to go far, even though one of the 2 teams are going to advance to Friday, where they will play, and that would be the Heat and Bulls, the first game tonight, and the follow-up would be the Mavericks and Kings. They will meet up against the Grizzlies, who lost in Golden State, and the Atlanta Hawks, who lost in Orlando to the Magic, as both of those teams advance. And that's where I want to start, because with the Warriors and with everything that had come to these final couple of days of the season where they lost last week to the San Antonio Spurs, which to me was just inexplicable. There was no way, shape, or form that the Warriors this late in the year, and especially with the way they played ever since they got Jimmy Butler via trade from Miami to their ball club, and for them to lose to San Antonio, inexcusable. And then they lost a close game there on Sunday. I get it, overtime against the Clippers, which made them fall into the play-in tournament there last night. But for the Warriors, how big of a game was that for them in order for them to have a few days off, in order for them to rest up, to get ready to play the Houston Rockets? And how I look at it is one way and one way only. If they would have lost that game, I thought they would have been in danger of losing the game on Friday. Now it's moot. There's nothing to unpack about that. I totally get it. But this was imperative for the Warriors in order for them, if they're going to have a deep postseason run, they needed to win that game last night. And what you saw, as a matter of fact, let me take this graphic off. As a matter of fact, I don't even have a Warrior graphic. So let me just bear with me 1 second. There's just a rookie mistake on yours truly. But for Golden State, and we could all speculate how, yes, they had the pedigree, even with Jimmy Butler, who just became a part of the team in February, but with Steph, with Draymond Green, with guys like Moses Moody and Kevon Looney, guys that have won before. You can't even say Jonathan Kuminga at this point, because for whatever the reason, Steve Kerr's put him on ice, and that's certainly not a good thing. if you're a Warrior fan, which I'm sure my guy, let me see, I know I got some comments in here, which I'll get to, of course, my guy, Val, but I also want to shout out Bio. Thank you so much. Greetings to you, my man. Yes, Jonathan, we're going to get to that because I have a very interesting take with what Juan Soto said in the New York Post there in that interview yesterday, which I'm sure you read. And yes, thank you, Val, who's a Warrior fan, which I'm sure he's ecstatic. There you go. Warriors won yesterday. So we just want to get those comments out. And thanks to those guys that have hopped on board here. But for the Warriors, now, we know that yesterday's game was so important because they've been, let's call it as we see it, they have not been good in this playing scenario. 3 years ago in 2021, they lost to the Lakers and Memphis and had 2 shots to get into the tournament and lost. And then last year they lost to Sacramento when they had to go to Sacktown and they lit the beam in a little bit of revenge because remember, they lost to them the year before in that 7-game opening round series in the Western Conference. But for Golden State to get out of that game alive last night was enormous on 3 issues, 3 fronts. One, just to get the bad taste out of their mouths because they have not been a good playing tournament team. 2, because they're able to get a few days off leading into the game there on Sunday when they're going to play the Rockets. And I'll go through the schedule and the time frame. I didn't really get to peek at that just yet. I'm sure they're probably still determining who's going to go where because obviously with the winner of tonight's game, Dallas and Sacramento, having to then play the loser of last night's game, which is Memphis, and where they're going to lie as far as the timetable there for Sunday's slate of playoff games. But they don't have to worry about that. Now they can rest up. They can just get themselves ready for that. So that's number 2. And then the third thing, which I think is even huge, and it's almost even underlying, is because by them getting the piano off their backs, winning, and not only that, getting the days off, but number 3, I think psychologically and even physically for this team, despite their pedigree, and I don't want to hear it, although they're champions 4-time, et cetera. No, I really, truly believe that they have maybe not only just a good shot of winning the series against Houston, but maybe even going deeper than that. Because could you imagine if the Warriors were to play a game on Friday and then the quick turnaround to play Sunday, a game 1 against Houston? And even though they're our favorite to win that series, but you want to be able to preserve the 82-game season that they went through, the final week, as I mentioned, those 2 tough losses, which propelled them out of the top 6 in the Western Conference where they had to play in this playing tournament. And then on top of that, by them winning, now they could just, I don't want to say put their feet up, but now they could regroup, focus in on Houston, get a few days to rest up, and then not only that, but also preserve themselves here throughout the course of this postseason run. Because how I look at it is, the Warriors, do they have a deep postseason run in them? I don't know. Past this round, which it's going to be close. And tomorrow's podcast, I will do a complete preview of the NBA playoffs, as well as the Stanley Cup playoffs, which I'll get to later on. But the Warriors, they were the big story here going into this play-in because of what happened in this final week of the season. And who knows if they would have been able to win that game last night. And as it was close. It was tooth and nail. I understand that Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler combined both of those guys for 75 points, which was enormous. And with John Morant twisting his ankle there with about 4 minutes to go in the third quarter, and even though it was a situation with him being compromised, that helped the Warriors win the game, but it wasn't until you got there late. What was it, 111, 109, or excuse me, 109, 107 when Steph hit that 3, or maybe I think it was 111, 109, and then 114, 111 where he put the final dagger in on the Memphis Grizzlies. So although they were competitive, the Grizzlies, and they fought to the bitter end, but you have to wonder if John Morant was healthy, would that have been a situation where the Grizzlies would have pulled that game out? And remember, they won in Golden State there 3 years ago. What did that, or 4 years ago? What did that have to do with last night? Nothing, but it's not as if Memphis was afraid of Golden State, as you saw there last night, even with a hobbled John Morant. So I think this was huge for the Warriors. I think it was huge for them to go into this round and even beyond. But are they going to go deep? Are they going to get to a Western Conference final? And dare I even say an NBA final? I think it's a little bit, it's asking too much if you ask me. Because they are older, because they are a little bit long in the tooth. And yes, we could talk about experience, we could talk about pedigree, etc. But how's that worked out? And I understand different sport, etc. But how does that work out for the Pittsburgh Penguins over the years with Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, etc.? Yeah, they can keep those guys together until they're blue in the face, until they're old and gray. But that doesn't guarantee that they're going to be in a Western Conference final or in an NBA final to boot. So, yes, it does help them in the short term and for this first round. But after that, to me, it is a dice roll as far as the Warriors having any length in this postseason. I know Val B is not going to like that upon hearing it. So that's why I wanted to start there with the Warriors. And again, I can see them winning this first round. And I'm not going to predict that just yet. That'll be on tomorrow's podcast. Again, water, H2O, people, not vodka. Should be coconut water. I want a little bit of more potassium as opposed to just H2O. But anyway, I digress. So that's what you have there with Golden State winning that big game last night. And then the other game last night, which to me, what was there to discuss? I talked about it there on the short that I threw out on YouTube, where I figured that it was going to be more Paolo Banchero. I didn't think Cole Anthony off the bench was going to score 26 points in a big game for him, but Banchero's a much better playmaker than Trae Young, although Trae Young did have 28 points, but what did he get? 21 field goal attempts, which he was 8 for 21 in the game. And we know he's a high-volume shooter, not really good percentage-wise, but for him to get ejected there late, and that was warranted considering chucking the ball to the ref and then taking his time to get off the court before giving the ball to the ref. And if anything, he just left it to the side. He didn't even give it to him. And the Hawks, this is a scenario where they have the fallback of having to play a game in their building Friday night, the first of the two games there, to see who advances to the tournament itself. And for the Magic, I'll talk about them first. The Magic, they are a team that play well defensively, and they play their offense in a clogged toilet. There are times where they show flashes. They do have ability there with their young core, obviously led by Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and guys like that. And for Orlando here, I think this was good for them to now advance. Now they're going to play the Celtics in this first round. But they didn't fool around. They took care of business. They won by almost 30. Was it 125 or 120-95, whatever it was? So for the Magic, it was cruise control. They certainly took care of the Hawks. And now Atlanta, let's see if they can get out alive to be the 8th seed and a sacrificial lamb to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I would think the same would be said there in the Western Conference, because whether or not whomever comes out of the game tonight, and I'll give you a little bit of a handicap there, but I would think Memphis would win. If they were to lose that game, that would be a terrible job on their part. And despite the fact that the Grizzlies have certainly precipitated here, and the plight of the organization dating back to when they fired the head coach Taylor Jenkins, on top of the whole situation with John Morant, whether it was with the gun pointing and the grenade throwing and all this nonsense. But for the Grizzlies, I think they'll get out alive, whether it be against Dallas or Sacramento. And then they'll also be a sacrificial lamb to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Although I think that series will be a little bit more competitive. And what I mean by a little bit more, maybe Memphis will win a game. I'd be shocked if they win two. But I can see them winning a game where if Atlanta plays Cleveland, I can see Cleveland just sweeping Atlanta, and then that's it. Now, as far as the games tonight, you have a scenario with the Heat and Bulls, and they've met many times here over the years in the scenario. And as early as just 2 years ago, where the Heat had a 3-point lead, the Bulls had a 3-point lead with 3 minutes ago, and then the Heat went on a run. I believe they closed the game out on a 12-1 run, and that was the start of the Heat to get themselves to an NBA final. Because remember, that's when they lost to Denver that year in 2023. So here's it now flipped to where Miami has to go to Chicago. And Chicago, they played well here, even after the trade where Zach LaVine went west. And it was a situation where the Bulls had just kind of piecemealed it together, and it had big wins. You know, they had the 2 big wins against the Lakers, including that miracle win with Josh Giddey. And they've actually been a team that, listen, are they going to do anything? Let's say if they win tonight and they become a team that is an 8 seed, and you have to think to yourself, if they do, now, of course, they have to beat Atlanta. But I don't know. I don't think the Bulls, they may be better fit to play against Cleveland than Atlanta will. But how I look at it is that this is a game where, just like the Magic Hawk game, I could see the Bulls blowing out the Heat. Now, the Heat had played better up until this last week or so. And even though we can talk about heat culture, etc., but I think the Bulls will prevail. I think that they're on a bit of a better roll than the Heat are going into this game. And there isn't really much. Listen, I wish this could be two teams that were better suited, that we could really look at this game and be like, oh, this is going to be really competitive. This is going to be fine. And I think it will be competitive, but I think the Bulls will win outright. I don't see the Heat winning this game. And I get it that people are going to say, well, JAYREELZ, at least they do have a bit of a pedigree here. But I think the Bulls are going to win and they'll advance to play there Friday night against the Hawks. I think it'd probably be better for the league. Maybe want to see Miami because they're more familiar with them as opposed to the Bulls. But I just like the Bulls tonight. And then in Dallas, Sacramento, there's a part of me that's going to root for the Mavericks, although I think Sacramento will probably win the game based on a little bit more leadership there and cohesiveness with Domantas Sabonis. And even with DeMar DeRozan, I'm sure he doesn't want to go out like that and want to play there in Memphis on Friday. But I would like to see Dallas win for the sake of their fans. And that's going to be the next thing I'll get into when it comes to the Mavericks. But for this game tonight, I'm going to root for Dallas, but I think Sacramento's going to win only because they have home court and they've been in this game before. Like I mentioned earlier, last year they beat Golden State in this spot. And Dallas, they're going to need a big game from Anthony Davis. He's going to have to put up one of those 28-15 type games in order for them to advance. Remember, they have no Kyrie Irving. They don't have another bona fide scorer. Yes, you want to say Klay Thompson, but come on. Klay Thompson right now, he is, let's face it, he's pretty much starting the twilight of his career. But he could have one of those nights where he can shoot the lights out of the ball. He'll go 6 from 10 from 3. But Anthony Davis is going to be the guy that they're going to lean on to deliver them to Memphis to play in a do-or-die advance to the tournament game there on Friday night. So that's what you have with those scenarios in regards to the play-in. Now, here's the big thing. Speaking of the Mavericks, now yesterday, the GM, by way of the owner, so you got to put this on Patrick Dumont's shoulders as to having this press conference, which there were no cameras involved. So you didn't have a plethora of whether local news or even had a chance for any of the big networks that broadcast sports, the Fox Sports and the ESPNs of the world, etc. So this was in a controlled environment where questions were monitored. And for Nico Harrison, the GM, to come out to say that he has no regrets on trading Luka Doncic. Now, we all know, deep down in his heart, if you gave him truth serum, he may not say regrets, but I'm sure that's one he'd like to have back. Because look at the just overwhelming response by the fan base, by pretty much that region, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And just a week ago today was let's face it, that was a homecoming for Luka Doncic. The almost 3-minute video put up on the screen, the embrace by the fan base. And that was not 2 middle fingers. That was a middle finger and this to the GM. And the Fire Nico chants coming from the upper rafters there at the American Airlines Center. And I don't want to hear from even the most big-time NBA, diehard NBA fan to say, oh, well, you got to give him credit for facing the media or at least answering questions. Again, controlled environment, number one. And number two, what is he going to say? Oh, you know what, guys, I shouldn't have made this trade. So therefore, he's going to look like a fool where Anthony Davis, if they happen to walk by, he's never going to admit that. And to me, as I said this weeks ago when the trade happened, this is more on the owner than it is on the GM. Because it's not as if the GM went ahead and made this trade and the ownership was like, wait, what are you doing? You know he had to bring it up to his superior to say, listen, we have an opportunity to trade Luka Doncic. We don't have to pay him the $345 million supermax. And if you have any concerns about his health, whether he smokes hookah, whether he drinks too much beer, whether he maybe goes through the drive-thru way too many times than we like and doesn't work out like a fiend, all those things, here's the opportunity. Of course, he brought that to his attention. So this is more on Dumont's shoulders than it is Nico Harrison. But, of course, there has to be a fall guy and there has to be a trigger man. And, of course, with him being the GM and making these deals. Now, of course, if you're Dumont, you could certainly go to And again, this is all stuff that I said, but one last time here, hopefully to put the rest, because when he came out with these comments yesterday, I was just flabbergasted. And knowing that in the environment that it was, and to do this on the eve of them playing in a do-or-die game against Sacramento was just preposterous. Maybe wait till after the season, let it breathe, and don't go in front of the local media to have it justified that, oh, well, hey, we stand pat, and I don't double down, I quadruple down on this deal. Now, here's the thing. It's just like I mentioned before. If Anthony Davis puts up a stink bomb, and he can do those every once in a while, if he doesn't go out there and put up, forget about 28 and 15, how about him putting up 34, 19, and maybe even 7 assists? Now, granted, what does this mean in the grand scheme of things? They're probably not going to advance past Friday, and if they do, they're going to get slaughtered by Oklahoma City. But you got to at least, Anthony Davis, be able to show up in this game and give it all you got. And that's not to say he's not going to or he won't. But one more time, these comments came at the worst possible time, because let's say, for instance, if Davis does not put forth an epic performance or worse, let's say gets hurt in the game, Nico Harrison, he's going to have egg, tomato, and whatever on his face based on what he just said yesterday. And then what's going to happen? Probably the owner's going to end up firing him, which will obviously be just the big-time total indictment on the GM. And you know he can't fire him just yet, because Dumont's going to then show the world, not just the NBA world, but the sports world, how he made a mistake in having signed off on this deal. And as we all know, Patrick Dumont is a new owner. Everybody thinks Mark Cuban prior to this, how could he do this? No. The Dumonts are now the guy that's in charge there. There's no more Mark Cuban. Yes, he has minority stake, but he doesn't sign the checks and make the final call on decisions here. So I just thought this was terrible timing and just a bad look. Why would you even go there? This was the last thing you wanted to do. And I get it. The owner was the one. And this goes to show you. The recent stretch, whether it's the NBA, National Football League, etc., a lot of these guys who get these teams, and yes, build generational wealth and money that we can never even imagine. And for them, and what they did prior to getting an NBA team, NFL team, etc., they can talk about how brilliant they are, and they are, because they're not where they are in life by not making shrewd deals or taking risks or doing things of that nature. But just because you're big in whatever business that you were prior to getting your NBA team doesn't automatically mean that your business is going to translate to success in the NBA. Absolutely not. We can go on down the list of owners. Daniel Snyder. Even, I hate to say it, I know he's not watching, and if he does, God bless him, Michael Jordan, when he became an owner, how was he? Awful. Look at David Tepper in Carolina and how that's unfolded. There is a laundry list, and even to a certain extent, we can talk about Jerry Jones, and he's won Super Bowls, granted eons ago, but how his team has not been of any success over the last 3 decades. So owners, for whatever the reason, they just get in the way instead of just saying, you know what, I'm just here to sign the checks. You take care of the personnel and the whole operation. And yes, come to me if you have anything that's out of the box or off the cuff, whatever, and we'll discuss it. But for Dumont to all of a sudden, and this is what I have heard people, for him to have this press conference there yesterday and then add more pressure to the team, and even more so Anthony Davis, because let's say if he doesn't deliver tonight, or if they do win on Friday night where he puts up a dud tonight or worse, win tonight, not play well, and then puts up a dud there on Friday, and they get ousted where Luka is just going to start his postseason on Saturday night against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That is just terrible optics. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what kind of fan you may be. And yes, we can agree to disagree. I don't know if there's any comment. There's a comment. I'll get to that in a second. But please, for the Mavericks, as much as it has been a dumpster fire, was only made worse by those comments there by the GM. And if you agree or disagree, please put your stats in the comments. Val B here. How far do you think the Warriors go to playoffs? I don't know if you were in and out, but quite frankly, this is going to be a tough first round because everybody's going to dismiss the Houston Rockets. Everybody's going to look at them like, oh, well, Golden State has all the experience, and now they have a game under their belt. And Houston, we've never seen them there. Houston has some dogs. They have Jalen Green. They have Alperen Sengun. Amen Thompson is a guy that a lot of people are going to find out who he is as far as an NBA player is concerned. They have a champion on their team in Fred VanVleet. They also have a guy who's going to bring physicality, although not my cup of tea, but Dylan Brooks. This is not going to be a cakewalk. So, yes, I understand they don't have any experience, and this is a situation that they're green when it comes to going into a scenario playing against a seasoned veteran championship-laden team. But if you ask me, I think the Warriors will win this series. Now, it may go 7, but I don't think they're going to get past the conference semifinals. So Western Conference Final, whether it be, dare I even say, against the Oklahoma City Thunder, because remember, if they do advance and beat Houston, they're going to play the winner of the Lakers and Timberwolves. So I don't know if they, and they played well against the Lakers. I get it. But let's get through this first. But I don't see them get to a conference final. So, and look, my guy Bio, Houston in 6. I haven't predicted it just yet. I think they can win the series. I know I'm still kind of on the fence because I do like Houston's team, despite the fact that they do not know their way around postseason play. Now, their coach does, because remember, Ime Udoka, in his only year in Boston, coached them to a NBA final against who? Golden State. So he does know his way. And the prior series was against Miami when they won that 7th game by the edge of their fingernails against Jimmy Butler. So he knows that team and he knows those players. So that's going to be beneficial. Everybody that's going to write the Rockets off as of right now, they're going to be sadly mistaken because they are going to be a team, I'm sure, with Golden State being favored, I would think they're going to put that, the coaching staff, they're going to put that in the players' heads that, wait a minute, Golden State's favored. We're a 2 seed. We've earned this. Now, all of a sudden, they're just going to put us out the pasture. So I don't see that happening as far as the Rockets just laying down for Golden State just to steamroll them and then get to the next round. So that's what they have with the NBA. I want to get to a couple of other things. Listen, I know it's going to be quick, people. I know for the few of you out there that like hockey, it is coming to an interminable end tomorrow night. Thank goodness, because it is a situation where the NHL has gotten zero pub other than Alexander Ovechkin getting the all-time goal-scoring record over Wayne Gretzky 10 days ago. But you have to admit, this NHL season has just been, granted in some cities, you could talk about Washington and Winnipeg, and all right, fine, no problem. But there have been absolutely no drama down the stretch. And you have one last spot where the Canadiens, they play Carolina, and the Columbus Blue Jackets, they are 2 points behind Montreal to get that final spot. So if Montreal wins or just gets a point, all they got to do is just tie. They'll get the final wildcard spot. And for Columbus, they're going to need for them to win and Montreal to lose in order for them to get that final spot. And Carolina, who knows? I'm sure they're going to rest people. It's going to be a scenario where the Canadians will probably win tonight. And remember, this is when they lost to Chicago in a shootout the other night, where they did get 1 point, but the Blackhawks, as we all know, they have been out to sea since probably New Year's Day. So if you're a big-time NHL fan, I know you're just waiting for the postseason. I know you're just waiting for the playoffs to begin because you've absolutely had zero drama. And I just want to make sure. I think Columbus plays tomorrow. Do they not? Yeah, they play the Islanders. So we'll see. If Montreal just gets a tie tonight, it's over. That game tomorrow for Columbus means absolute squat. So that's the only scenario you have in the NHL. Toronto won the Atlantic, so you don't have to worry about that. They, even with the Lightning winning yesterday, but Toronto, they'll have the 2 seed and they'll host Ottawa in an opening round. Florida, they've just been flailing. They lost to Tampa yesterday, so Florida's going to play at Tampa. And I'd be really concerned because even though Matthew Tkachuk, who's expected to return the heart and soul and blood and guts of that team, but Tampa's playing well, and Florida, they really have not played well here down the stretch. And I thought the Brad Marchand, when he had that assist in the game against the Utah Hockey Club, what was it, about 2.5 weeks ago, where I thought Marshawn was going to be a huge lift, and I get it. Once the playoffs begin, it's a whole new season. But the Panthers, I don't know if they're going to have any length in this postseason, considering the way they played down the stretch, and they cannot have that flick-the-switch mentality, especially against their in-state rival, who last year in the opening round, they embarrassed them. They beat them in 5 games, and they actually were on the borderline of sweeping them until the Tampa Bay Lightning showed some pride in that game 4 before losing in 5 against the Panthers. So you know they're going to want to exact revenge from that series last year. But other than that, I mean, that's what you have. I mean, you don't really have anything else to chew on if you're the fan of a National Hockey League team or just a fan of the sport overall. Now, it's weird. I want to find out. I thought that the Stanley Cup Final or Stanley Cup playoffs, begin on Sunday the 20th. Now, I think they start on ESPN on the 20th because ESPN, I believe they have the whole slate on Saturday, but I believe the Stanley Cup playoffs begin on Saturday as well. And right now I'm looking to see, and obviously they don't have the slate of games that are going to be shown because unlike the NBA where they have their play-in tournament, and we know that Saturday slate with Milwaukee, Indiana, the Clippers in Denver, Detroit and the Knicks, and Minnesota at the Lakers, we already know that Saturday's schedule is set. Where Sunday, right now, we know who the teams are involved, especially from the 7 seeds, where you have both Golden State and Houston, Orlando at Boston, but you still have to fill out the rest of that bracket where the play-in tournament will conclude on Friday. And then, of course, they're going to play those games on Sunday, whether that be at OKC or at Cleveland. So you have that to deal with. But for the NHL, I believe it's going to start Saturday. And tomorrow, I'll have it all. And hopefully Montreal does get a point tonight because at least we'll know the entire 16 teams, 8 in the East, 8 in the West will be set. You may have to deal with some seeding issues, but at least I can preview the playoffs in full and not have to worry about, now I got to wait and see whether or not Columbus gets in or Montreal is going to back out or whatever, or fall out and Columbus sneaks in through the back door. So thankfully, if Montreal wins tonight, I can talk about that on tomorrow's podcast. And of course, again, Apple, Spotify, you see that at the scroll there at the bottom of your screen. All right, now I want to get to something that I know the Yankee fan is trying to tweet yours truly. I'm just looking at some other sports news here. Trey got tossed. There we know. Warriors relief, yeah. As I pull up the graphic here, and I'm sure who knows what this is going to be like for those, but the New York Post had an interview with Juan Soto that was released yesterday. And Soto was talking about his former teammate and the guy who batted behind him last year in pinstripes and won Aaron Judge. And I'm paraphrasing here. Maybe I should have bring up the article. Next time I know I got to make it a little bit more interactive where I'll put up share my screen so you can see. But pretty much what Juan Soto said that it was different last year, having the best hitter in baseball bat right behind him and won Aaron Judge. And he's 100% right about that. And despite the fact that Pete Alonso has 5 home runs, 20 RBIs, he's batting .350, and certainly paying the dividends of having Juan Soto in the lineup. But based on those comments, and listen, kudos to Soto for being upfront, for being honest, and just sharing how, I had the best hitter in baseball, and it's a lot different not having that guy in the lineup, despite the fact that Alonso's no slouch. Is he Aaron Judge? He is absolutely not. So for the Yankee fans going to think, is JAYREELZ going to say that Pete Alonso is going to be better than Aaron Judge this year? No, I'm not going to say that, and he's not better overall. The power numbers, more so the home runs and the RBIs, are close to Aaron Judge. In fact, he's second in home runs to Judge during that time frame from 2019 when Pete Alonso entered the league. But nobody's going to, please, even I, the biggest Met fan, blue and orange pom-poms, even I'm not stupid enough to say that he is nowhere even close on the stratosphere of Aaron Judge when it comes to Major League Baseball. The guy's won 2 of the last 3 years of MVPs, and he's hit 62 and 58 home runs in the process. And yes, we know Alonso is a slugger. He's not the hitter that Judge is. What is Judge batting now? 330, whatever it is. And despite the fact that Alonso's 350, but we know he's not going to maintain that clip throughout the course of the year. He'll probably end up anywhere, to be fair to him, 260 to 280. And that may even be generous because he may end up being 240 to 260 when it's all said and done. But that's the type of guy, when you have Soto in the lineup, that's what's going to happen to Alonso. He's going to get that feast of fastballs to where he has just been tattooing him, which is also, and let me digress for a second, which has also been the situation in how Mark Vientos being dropped down the lineup has been awful. And that's the thing. Vientos was more of that protection for Alonso, where he was getting those steady diet of fastballs. And that's why I thought it would have been even more imperative to have Soto bat 3 than bat 2. And I understand last year he batted 2 and Judge batted 3rd. I get it. But imagine having Lindor, Vientos, Soto, and Alonso, your top 4. And you don't have to worry about lefty-righty because Lindor's a switch hitter, Vientos righty, Soto lefty, and Alonso righty. To me, it lengthens the lineup. Vientos right now, he can't hit his way out of a wet paper bag. I know he got an RBI double day the other night in Minnesota. But, and yes, I'll reel it in and get back to the Yankee fan trying to tweak the Met fan, or yours truly for that matter. But for Soto, having him in that lineup, to me, means more to the Mets than having Soto in the lineup to the Yankees. Because Judge, he's going to mash no matter who's. You can have me bat in front of Judge. He's still going to hit a zillion home runs. So it doesn't matter. And this is what's happening. The beneficiary of Soto's reputation and his eye at the plate is benefiting Alonso here. So how I look at it is that if the Yankee fan's going to try to tweak the Met fan or me to say, oh, he's missing the Yankees. Oh, I'm sure he wishes he's in the Bronx. If you read between the lines of what he said about having the best hitter in baseball and it's different over here and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, all right. He's speaking from the heart. Does that mean he wants to be in pinstripes? No, if he wanted to be in pinstripes, I'm sure he would have signed the 15-year, $760 million deal, but because they didn't want to give Soto a suite and they didn't roll out the red carpet for his family on top of Steve Cohen giving him $5 million more. Now, right, is that $5 million more really going to be the end-all, be-all? And I believe they were offering 16. Was it 16 for 760 or whatever it was? But $5 million left on the table. He took it. That was it. What more can you say? So it's not going to bother me whether or not Soto wishes he was in the Bronx or is pining for the days of where, and the days of just last year, where he went, what, 41, 109? Now, he batted only, what, 288 was his average. But because he had a monster season hitting in front of Judge, that doesn't mean he's not going to hit 20 home runs, 80 RBIs, and bat 275 this year. I'm sure when it's all said and done, he's going to be 30 and 100, maybe 290. Yeah, he's not going to be 41, 109, but that's not too shabby, and I get it. Well, you're paying him $51 million. Yes, we understand that too, but as I reel this in and corral this and put this in a nice package for those out there that think that, oh, well, he went to Queens for the money, and oh, for whatever the reason, Soto's still living in the Yankees fans rent-free. Let it go. Why even bother? Yeah, you want to tweak the Met fan, whatever? All right, fine. You're not going to tweak me. I could care less. So for those that want to get at me, and I've seen the videos, and I just laughed, and I haven't responded because I'm just not going to go to any lowbrow type affair where the Yankee fan is going to do whatever it takes. And I get it. 1 month from today, think about this, people. The Subway Series is at Yankee Stadium Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And you know that is going to be a snake pit when Juan Soto steps to the plate there in the top of the first inning at around maybe 7:08 p.m. that Friday night. But you know what? Until we get to that point, and even then, it's still not going to bother me. It's not going to tweak me. I'm not a 25-year-old fan that I'm just going to phone and start typing stuff and just to get at the Yankee fan. No, But if the Yankee fan wants to just say, oh, Juan Soto this, Juan Soto that, oh, yeah, he wishes he had Judge, oh, he should have stayed in the Bronx, all this, okay. Fine, he's not in the Bronx. He's not going to the Bronx. That's it. Get over it. So, yeah, you won your 2 games against the Royals, fine. You go for the sweep today or tonight, and, yeah, you move it along. And you go to the Rays, to your home ballpark, your spring training park over the weekend, where you're going to play Tampa. And I believe that's where they play this weekend. Let me just double check that, because I don't want to come across as, oh, yeah, they're going to play in Tampa, and then next thing you know, they're going to be on the West Coast. No, just like I thought, in Tampa tomorrow, and that game's on Prime, just like the game tonight. Yankees have all these games on Prime Video? Seriously? Back-to-back? I thought they just played once a week. Well, anything for a cash grab, but that's the way the world is in 2025 and beyond, not only just with baseball, but with all the sports as we know. And I'll get to the comments in a second before I get to the next thing. But, all right, so Soto was honest, and you like that. It's refreshing, and it's not going to bother me what he says, unless he says that, yeah, I kind of wish I was in the Bronx. Then I'm going to be like, oh, you're an idiot. And you can read between the lines all you want and conspiracy theories and nonsense until he says that, yes, I do miss the guys in the Bronx, or yes, I do miss pulling up to Yankee Stadium. Then we could bash Soto all he wants. But you know he's not going to say that. He's not, I mean, please. So anyway, that was a story that came out yesterday. I know it's more of a local thing. It's not more broad or more from a national standpoint. But I just had to get that off my chest, because for those who are thinking or wondering, oh, wow, does Soto really want to be in the Bronx? Well, if that's the case, then he should have signed there. Well, as we all know, that's not. So I will march on and continue from there. But let me just see. All right, Bio Kings. Yes. In the hockey, yeah, because we talked about the hockey prior to the baseball stuff. Kings, Edmonton. Now, they played in the first round last year, and Edmonton had the home ice, where this time the Kings are going to have the home ice. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to shake down. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Obviously, it's intense. It's always riveting. And unlike the NBA, where the 1-8 seeds, it's a formality, and I get it a few years ago. Miami beat Milwaukee, but remember, Giannis didn't play in 2.5 of those games. He didn't play the rest of Game 1, missed Game 2, missed Game 3 as well. But that should be a very hotly contested series. I'm looking forward to my Stanley Cup playoff preview on the podcast tomorrow. Of course, scroll there at the bottom, Apple, Spotify, JAYREELZ, etc. And then, Jonathan, me and those switch over. Yeah, I mean, listen. I get it that he's going to be a lightning rod here based on the contract, the highest paid player in professional sports, and because it's New York and because he formerly played with the Yankees, that anything he's going to say could be twisted, could be whatever. And again, I'm not looking at twisted. It's the Yankee fan that right away, they're like, ha, 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 tongue in cheek. There you go. He even admitted it. The best hitter in baseball, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, if you think Pete Alonso does this and that, he's a slouch. All right, fine. If Pete Alonso was batting .230 with 1 home run right now, they can say all they want. Look what Pete Alonso's doing. And yes, he's a beneficiary one more time of having Soto in the lineup, but that's what it does. I mean, please, we watch the games. We see it right in front of our eyes. It is not rocket science. It is not a revelation. So that's why the Yankee fan needs to pipe down. And I'm not one to troll. I'm not one to do that. I know there's other people that like to get into all that, whatever. That's not been me. To me, it's just wasted energy. Now, I'm going to state my case and speak with, from the heart, etc. If I feel like something's said that's offline or out of line or off base, 100%. But if people are just going to get at me with, ha, 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 look at this, or with the Met fan trying to be the Yankee, or whatever it is, in one ear, out the other, or just scroll up. And that's it. But I hear you, Jonathan. Listen, I don't know. Did I say anything that was offline or out of touch with Soto? I mean, I know, listen, I'm not the quote-unquote media per se, but yeah, I mean, we all have thoughts, we have opinions on it, and that's why I cherish you guys and gals with hopping on board and chiming in the chat room and just getting your thoughts, because that's what this live stream is all about. And as I continue to do these moving forward, yeah, one more time, this is what sports talk, the fodder for sports talk, and for us to debate or share our thoughts, opinions, critiques, etc. So, and I appreciate that, Jonathan. Thank you so much. So let's see what else happens here throughout the course of this live stream. Is there anything else I want to get to? All right, should I get to my on location? My one thing that I started off at the top to talk about this coming weekend of what I'm going to do and where I'm going to be? What the hell? Let's get to it. So I'll preface it by saying this before I put the graphic up. If you hadn't seen on the channel here at JAYREELZ YouTube, I posted a video a week ago yesterday on taking the temperature of the Met fan based on opening day, coming off of a 3-3 road trip, just to kind of see what their expectations were at. Because me being a long, jaded, and cynical Met fan, and you've heard me time after time how I feel about the team, but I was wondering if there were more people like me, were there people that were worse, or people that were just like, World Series or bust, baby. And of course, yeah, we understand that. But do they really mean that? Do they feel it in their bones and in their heart, knowing that it's been 39 years since the Mets have won a World Series? So I went out there and I got the vlog up, as you well know. And maybe I'll end it with that note. I'll go back to the Mets and just hear me out, especially to Jonathan, who's in the room, because you may get a kick out of what it is I have to say about the Mets. But since I did that video and I was in front of Citi Field Saturday, 4 o'clock, I'm going to try to get there even a little bit before because the game is at 6. So I want to try to get as many Knicks fans as possible. I'll be outside of Madison Square Garden. I'm sure if you know the area well, and I know you have various entrances to get into the Garden, but the main one there on 7th Avenue between 31st and 33rd Street, I'll be outside, whether it be to the right side, because you have those two sides that you're getting to. I'll probably be somewhere in the right or left. Just look for me. I'll have the JAYREELZ podcast cap on, and you'll see me with a camera, etc. But yes, I'm going to take the temperature of the Knicks fan to see how they're feeling going into this postseason. Now, we know in this first round series against the Knicks, I would think, the Knicks, the Pistons, they don't know their way around, similar to the Houston Rockets with the Warriors. But considering the Knicks have been in the postseason now the last 4 years, and they won a first-round series last year, beating the Sixers, and for them to lose in a 7-game series to the Pacers. Now, this year's different because they do win their first-round series. The likelihood in the second round they're going to face are the Boston Celtics, who they are 0-4 against. So, but still, I'm sure there's going to be a Knicks fan that think, that was the regular season. Postseason's different. We're going to be ready. New York, stand up. Go New York, go New York, go. Well, that's what I want to get. So I'll be out there. It's going to be a warm day. I hope the rain stays away. I saw some rain in the forecast, I think 45%, whatever it may be. But it's going to be almost 80 degrees. So I'll be out there, raring to go. You'll see me with the hat on, the JAYREELZ t-shirt, and I'm going to interview all the Knicks fans. So if you want to stop by, pass by, and I'll even leave a reminder on my social media platforms as well. And of course, here on YouTube. But for those who are going to be in the area, or for those who are going to the game, or for those who are going to cheer the Knicks from a local bar there, you want to be a part of the vlog, part of what I'm going to record, this is your invite to pass by, look for me, as we'll have some fun talking about the Knicks, talking about your chances. I'll ask a few questions, etc., and we'll have at it there throughout the course of a couple of hours, hour and a half, whatever it may be. I'll try to get there a little bit before 4, but I figure 4 is the sweet spot where people will start getting near the building, or at least there'll be a bit of a groundswell for everybody to get psyched and geeked up for game 1 between the Pistons and Knicks. And we'll probably harken back long time now to that 84 series in the first round. That was a 5-game series there where Bernard King had that epic performance in game 5 at Joe Louis against Isaiah, if you recall. Now, for the younger basketball or even Knicks fan, they may not remember that, or they may have seen that on YouTube. But I remember I lived it because the Knicks won that series, and then they played the Celtics in the conference semis, and the Celtics won in 7 before going on and winning a national championship, an NBA championship. So, yeah, come on down. Come on. Bring your family, friends, foes, frenemies, as I'll get you in on the vlog. I'll edit it and have it done there early the next week. And then maybe we can talk about it here on the live stream to get your thoughts. And obviously, we'll talk about the playoffs, a few other scenarios as well. Let's see what we got here. Comment-wise, you all right? All right, cool. I appreciate that, Jonathan. Thank you so much. And I feel the Mets are more lucky than good at this moment. Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel they're lucky than good? Now, and I've thought about this. The Mets have played a schedule other than the Marlins, all American League teams. I mean, think about it. They started the season. Playing Miami, but then prior to that, they were in Houston. As I was trying to, I'm sure you probably heard the mechanics of my brain working. In Houston, lost 2 out of 3. Then they played Miami. In Miami, they won 2 out of 3. Hosted Toronto as they swept the Blue Jays. And then they also had the Marlins come back and won 2 out of 3 there. Or excuse me, they ended up, they won 2 out of 3 because they lost the last game of that series. And then they went to Sacramento to play the Athletics and now the Twins. So the only National League team they played so far, and after today's game, which is going to start in about 20 minutes, has been the Miami Marlins. So hopefully they can salvage this game today, come back home with a 12-6 record, where they'll have a 4-game series upcoming. I believe it's against the Cardinals, and I should know off the top of my head. Same with the Rays and the when I was trying to think, are they going to play the Rays this weekend? And yes, in the schedule here, again, I believe it is St. Louis. Let's just make sure, because yes, they do. They'll play the Cardinals over the weekend. So let's see if they win that game today. But as I pull up the screen, the Mets haven't played nobody. All right, you want to say Toronto? You want to say the Blue Jays there when they came into Citi Field at 5-2, and they played pretty well since getting swept by the Mets. But come on, Marlins, I understand they played okay for the Marlins, but it is early on. Usually teams are going to play well the first month unless you're Atlanta, who's been struggling, as we know, or if you're the Colorado Rockies. But they haven't really played anybody. Houston's a 500 team, or right below at this present moment. You have the Athletics, who are, again, mediocre. The Twins, what are they right now? 6-12 or whatever their record is at this moment. So, yes, we cannot say that the Mets have been world beaters to start, despite their 11-6 record. But I don't know, Jonathan. You think they've been lucky here at the start? I beg to differ. I think they've been a product of their competition. But again, you can only play the teams that are in front of you. So as much as we can look at and say, oh, maybe the Mets have been lucky here off this start, I think it's just their competition's been bad. And yeah, the Cardinals, they're going to come in this weekend, and the Cardinals have not been great either. Let me even pull up the standings just to make sure where we're at here when it comes to these teams. Cardinals right now are 8-9, like I mentioned. And let's just go just based on the teams that they played. Astros 8-9, Athletics 7-10. The Blue Jays are 10-8 now. And for the Marlins, National League East, they're 500. So, yeah, they have not played teams. And granted, I understand if you're not San Diego, if you're not the Dodgers, or even the Giants for that matter, everybody's just been kind of still shaking off the cobwebs, so to speak. Because, and maybe even the Cubs for that matter, what are they, 12-8? All right, give it up to the Cubs, no problem. But we're still early here. Now, again, I'm sure things will change a little bit as we move it along. And I'll get your comment there, Jonathan, as well as you, Bio. I see you put up an NBA comment there. Yeah, I would look at this as just them playing teams that every team in the league is going to have to play at some point. But they've been able to win these series. The Houston one notwithstanding, because since then they've won every series since. And hopefully they can win this game this afternoon so they can come back home. And I believe they'll have a 7-game homestand with the Cardinals coming in for 4. And let's see who they play after that as I pull up the Met schedule. And I know before people say, well, JAYREELZ is supposed to know this off the top of your head. Well, obviously I got a lot of these other sports that I'm juggling. So, yes, they play the Phillies because I know one of the games are on TBS next week. So, interesting homestand for them because 4 games against St. Louis, I understand 500. But the Phillies come to town already before they go to Washington. And then That's before playing Arizona for 3, and then they go to St. Louis in the early part of May. So that's what you have with the Mets here in this early part of the season. All right, Concanapel entering NBA draft. Now seriously, I'm not even going to talk about that. The current administration suing Maine over a trans ban. Okay. These are just some of the headlines I'm seeing here, but we got that going on. And then let me get to the comments here real quick. Jonathan, I'll go with you first. The pitchers are not going past 5 innings. I know that. Bottom line is automatic outs. No, you're right about that. I mean, they have not hit well here. Their bullpen's been good. That you got to admit. The starting pitching, I know, it's 5, but are you shocked? I mean, even if you go back 10 years, Matt Harvey, Noah Syndergaard, Jacob deGrom, Steven Matz, in the early part of the year, are they going 6, 7 innings? Probably not. And it's just a shame that once upon a time, Ron Darling said that 7 is the new 9 when it comes to pitching. Like 7 innings is almost like 9 innings the way it was 30, 40 years ago. Well, sadly, it's like 6 is now the new 9, which to me is just mind-blowing because then you have your designated 7, 8, and 9 relievers, your closer, to close out these games. So pitchers, unless they're on a low pitch count, so let's say, for instance, it's the 6th inning and that pitcher has thrown 68 pitches to where he may get out of the 6th at 80, and he has 20 pitches to work with, or anywhere between 15 to 20, depending on analytics, because we all know the immortal words of Todd Zeal, it's the iPad, not the eye test. But for Major League Baseball, sadly, this is how it is in 2025 and beyond. You're right. They're not going past 5 innings, and the lineup is terrible, the bottom of it. And I get it. Luis Torrens has added a little something, but the Tyrone Taylors of the world, and I would think once Francisco Alvarez comes back, and not to say that he's going to all of a sudden be Mike Piazza, but he has a little bit more length. And maybe he'll help out Vientos a little bit, considering how bad he's been. But, yeah, I mean, the lineup has just been the bottom of the lineup. They're automatic outs. It's bad. It's terrible. And then with Jose Siri out with a broken leg, and he was another guy who was batting, 161 before he got her, or 190, whatever it was. And Taylor, we know he's there more for his glove than for his bat. Yeah, I mean, it's bad. And that's why Alvarez, if he goes back to his 2023 form when he hit 25 home runs, at least he's a guy that could be dangerous in that lineup with the top 5. And hopefully Vientos starts to wake up at some point. But, yeah, it's just a shame how once you get past Vientos, it is almost like ground zero because you have guys that certainly have not been able to carry their weight with not only just big hits, but just getting a hit. So we'll have to see. And with Torrens, too, I mean, listen, I'm surprised by what he's done. And a lot of people think, of course, he's a better defensive player than he is an offensive player. Excuse me. But my thing is that he's going to come back to the pack as well. He's not going to be a guy that's going to bat anywhere near 280 when it's all said and done. And who knows when Alvarez is going to come back on top of that, because Alvarez was going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, and he was out, I think, since the middle of March. So here we are in the middle of April. So maybe we'll see him as early first week of May. If not, we're going to probably see him at this time next month, maybe for the Subway Series, May 16th. We could possibly see a return of our starting catcher. But besides that, I mean, you can't really hang your hat on the bottom of a lineup, especially 7, 8, and 9, where guys are going to hit their weight. And that's all there is to it. Now, as I pull up their stats, I know Starling Marte, 167. I know that's definitely not good, but Vientos, $145. I just wanted the exact people instead of just throwing out 190s and 180s. Vientos is 145. Torrens, 289 right now. Jesse Winker, I know, when he's as a DH, off at 167. Luis Angel Acuna, he's starting to hit a little bit. He's at 265. But, yeah, they're going to have to do something toward the bottom of that lineup, and hopefully Alvarez could be a guy that will add not only some punch, but also a little bit of length in that lineup. But and in bio, let me see, NBA playoffs. Schedule is brutal. Well, more so in the first round. Once you get past the opening round, it does balance out a little bit. You will get a lot of every other day, although there'll be a moment where they'll extend that second round. Once you get to the conference finals, it's every other day, which is good, thank God. But yeah, this first round, they extended. Why, I don't know. And because the schedule hasn't come out as of yet, let me see. I'm going to pull that up, which is interesting. Because the NBA, what they'll do is with the Celtics, let's say, I'm just going to use them as an example. I would think Celtics are going to play Orlando 1 o'clock on Sunday. And then you're probably not going to see them play their next game until Wednesday. And then on top of that, they're probably not going to see them until Saturday. So you're going to have a scenario where they're going to play 3 games in almost a 7-day span, which is terrible. And I get it. They want to drag it out, and they don't have a situation where it's every other day. I mean, it's just brutal. And let me just see here. Oh, as a matter of fact, I could get Sunday schedule, so it's 3:30. So here's what you got. We know about Saturday's games. We need to break it down. So Sunday, the 8 seed will play Oklahoma City, 1 o'clock, ABC. Orlando at Boston, 3:30. Then you have the double dip at night, 8 seed at Cleveland, TNT, 7 p.m., and then Golden State at Houston, 9:30. And then Monday, here's where they stretch it out. Monday, instead of the 4 games on Saturday, like I mentioned, with Milwaukee, Indiana, Clippers, Denver, Detroit, New York, Minnesota, the Lakers, you only have 2 games on Monday. Detroit and New York, LA at Denver. And then Tuesday, you have Oklahoma City, Milwaukee, Indiana, and then Minnesota at the Lakers. And then just like I mentioned, Wednesday, 7 o'clock TNT, Orlando at Boston. And I bet you, all right, Boston will play Orlando on Friday, because then what you'll have is on Saturday, what they do is they want to guarantee Saturday and Sunday, both weekends, full slate of games. As we know, this weekend, you got 4 and 4 on Saturday and Sunday. But then next weekend, you have Cleveland at the 8 seed, Oklahoma City at the 8 seed, and that Cleveland 8 seed is game 3. Oklahoma City is game 4. And then you have Denver at LA is game 4. And then Houston at Golden State is game 3. So you have Houston Golden State there Sunday night, Wednesday night, and then Saturday night. That is your ABC game, Houston at Golden State, 8:30. And then Sunday, you have game 4, Knicks Detroit, game 4, LA at Minnesota, 1 and 3:30, Boston Orlando at 7, game 4, and then Indiana Milwaukee game 4 TNT. So they spread it out based on that. And a lot of those series don't go 7 games. If they do, it's usually like the 4-5 or sometimes even the 3-6 matchup. Last year, I think you only had Orlando, Cleveland. Oh, I think you had 2 game 7s last year, didn't you not? What about in the West? Was there a game? What was the 4-5 series last year in the West? Was that Clippers? No, Clippers Dallas was over in 6. No, I think the only game 7 was Orlando, Cleveland, off the top of my head. So that's the reason why they stretched it out, just so they could have all games. And you would think that they would still have that even if they did it every other day, but they guarantee that they do by stretching it out. And unfortunately, that's the way the NBA playoffs in the first round goes. All right, any other comments I have here? I do not. So, yeah, so let's get right to it again, people. One more time, Saturday on location. Come one, come all. I'll have you in the vlog. We'll chop it up about the Knicks, their chances, etc. It should be fun. Looking forward to it. And it's going to be warm, so that's even better because I'm sure that area is going to be buzzing, warm weather, anticipating game 1, and I'll be right there outside with you guys and gals to discuss the NBA playoffs and in particular Pistons-Knicks for a game 1. All right, that'll do it, people. I don't know. Any other reels, rants, critiques, videos? I got that in the works, as you know. Talked about that last week. Any last thoughts in the chat room? I'll give you a 10 count here before moving it along. As I say each and every live stream, please subscribe, like, leave a comment, etc. I truly appreciate you stopping by, as always, to carve out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say. And if there's anything, please leave it in the chat room. Leave me your thoughts. Who would you like to see interviewed? Now, of course, I'm an independent podcaster doing this full time, still trying to generate income here, as you know. But it's not as if you ask me, well, JAYREELZ, yeah, see if you could get Mike Piazza on or whatever. I could try, but I'm the little engine that couldn't. But with your help and your participation, I will go at all lengths to try to bring those type of guests on. And I even want to try to do so in the near future. Now, I know it's tricky because it's based on their schedule, but I want to have a guest on my live stream so you guys could banter, we could talk about it, even ask questions in the chat room, and we'll have the guests answer some of those questions. Trust me, that's all part of it, but it's tricky because it's the middle of the day, and not necessarily for me, but for that particular person to try to just get them to a point where say, hey, can you come on at 12:15 or 12:30 to give me 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long it may be, just to kind of talk about your career, post-career, et cetera, whether it's a current player, former player, even if it is a studio host, writer, broadcaster, color commentator, et cetera. I want to get anyone and everyone on. So please leave a comment. Let me know what you think as we move it along here on these Wednesday live streams, which I love doing. I mean, this is fun. It's great. It's kind of a break from just doing the recorded, having to edit and then put it up on my website, YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple, etc. This is just a version of that where we go back and forth. I see a comment here. I'll get to that in a second. So whatever it is that you guys and gals want, surely connect, chime in, let me know. What are your thoughts? Of course, Jonathan, let's see. I know the game's going to start in a few minutes, and I'm sure you want to sign off here to check that out. And if not, if you're watching me and have it on the background, bless your heart, Jonathan. Thank you again very much. And for everybody else that's jumped on board, the Val B's, the Bios, that's all I've had in the chat room for you three guys, which, of course, I take to heart. But, of course, with that being said, live stream every Wednesday, as you know. No ifs, ands, buts, babies about it. Thanks to all who stopped by live or who are going to listen to this or watch this on a replay. Again, I sincerely, gratefully thank you all, as that will conclude this live stream. So please, suggestion, comments, questions, whatever it may be, send them, whether here on YouTube at JAYREELZ or any of my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ Podcast, Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just the number, the old-fashioned way, to JAYREELZpodcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to talk about, people. This is why I quit my job 14 months ago to pursue this full time. And yes, still trying to, I could put in all the hours and all the work, which is great, but still trying to carve out that path. And with your help, take screenshots, send them to your family, friends, foes, frenemies, to the casual, to the diehard, to the kook, like everybody that's here in this chat room, and yours truly, that like sports, love sports, crave sports, need sports, eat sports, breathe sports, etc. Because I'm going nowhere as long as I'm alive and breathing on God's green earth, in the blood, in the DNA, as I always like to say, with sharing my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings in front of this microphone and camera on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JAYREELZ Podcast always comes correct, directed, in full effect. And live on top of that, too. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South End, and the South Pacific, and all points beyond. Peace, love, and God bless everybody. Thank you for tuning into the live stream. And until next Wednesday, and obviously tomorrow on the podcast, on the Flip Baby. And let's go Mets. LFGM, Jonathan. I got you, man.